Fallout 4's main gameplay loop encourages players to ravage locations and factions for a few main factors of the game: lore, loot, and XP. A normal playthrough of Fallout 4 will consist of the player traveling to a location, killing the inhabitants, looting the bodies, and returning to the quest giver for some XP. XP is a very important factor of that loop, as it allows the player to level up and choose perks to aid their playstyle, so their character will get more and more powerful as the game goes on. However, what happens if you take that away? What happens if you disallow yourself from ever leveling up? Is that game even possible at that point? Very well, challenge accepted. Welcome back to Challenge Chronicles. Today's episode, Fallout 4 at level 1. The concept of this run came to me in a dream. What happens if I use console commands to make it so I never receive XP? Is that even possible? Well, you'll see whether it's possible or not very soon. But what I can tell you is that this run was by far the most difficult and longest run of Fallout 4 I've ever done, and for reasons you wouldn't expect. Anyway, let's get the run started. I began with creating my character. I decided to choose the woman character this time, and then I proceeded to make her look as hideous as possible. With my character now looking like an old crone, I began the intro. With my special stats came my first huge decision. Since this is a no XP run, I'm never going to be able to change my special stats or improve them later in the game. That also means that I'm not going to be able to take any perks at all. This means that for the duration of this run, I'm going to be stuck with the build that I'm given by this Vault-Tec man. So I went with all reliable. I put 8 points into Charisma, Endurance, and Agility. Agility so I could sneak better because I figured I'd be doing a lot of sneaking. Endurance so I could have as big of a health bar as I could. And Charisma so I could talk myself out of a situation if something went south. I was pretty happy with my decision, and I told the Vault-Tec dude to piss off. Right after I told him that, some bombs started detonating around America. I knew I shouldn't have been mean to him. Now he's going to destroy the entire country. I said goodbye to Codsworth, ran to the vault, and did a sweet 360 no-scope onto the platform. I got a couple complaints in my last video that I didn't include the explosion in the footage. Apparently some of you wanted to see it. My bad. Here it is. The rest of the intro went pretty normally. Vault freezer, spousal murder, grand larceny, bullying, you know the drill. I got out of my pod and the run has officially started. It was at this point that I used console commands to set my experience to forever be in the negatives. But before I get to that, I have to do some housekeeping. When I went into my video analytics, I noticed that a vast majority of you watching these videos aren't subscribed, so I just thought I'd say this. If you're enjoying this video and you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I do this kind of content very frequently, and it helps me out a lot personally. It's totally free, and you can always unsubscribe later. Anyway, sorry about that, back to the video. I used a console command to set my XP to minus 999999999, so no matter how much XP I gain, it will never be counted, and therefore I will never level up. I'm now forever stuck at level 1. Now, time to take care of the roaches in Vault 111. This was a refreshing change actually, as I was actually able to just attack the roaches normally, just like any sane human being. It didn't matter what guns I used, as long as I finished the game without ever having leveled up. I killed the roaches and got my hands on a Pip-Boy, and then I headed out into the Commonwealth. I met Codsworth at Sanctuary and followed him around killing some bugs. He then told me to look for help in Concord, so I headed off there. On the way to Concord, I found Dogmeat at the Red Rocket truck stop, and I thought, hey, I'm actually able to have companions now, so fuck it, Dogmeat is coming with me. I found Preston and his Minutemen being attacked by raiders, so I lended a hand by turning the raiders' heads into group. I then headed inside and filled the rest of the raiders full of holes. Preston told me about the power armor on the roof, so I headed up there, and this time I was actually able to use the minigun. In my last video, the deathclaw in this mission was probably the hardest thing that the run ever threw at me. This time, it was piss easy. I simply went into the room it couldn't go into and laid into it with the minigun. I then freed the Minutemen, received adequate compensation, and then I was off to Diamond City. I stopped by Drumlin Diner and convinced them to hand over everything they had, and then I eviscerated them anyway. I then ditched my power armor at that diner because the fusion core inside the armor was running low. I eventually got to Diamond City, and I really did not want to help Piper, so I ditched. Yep, I went straight to Park Street Station to take on the Triggerman. Anything to talk to Piper as little as possible. I entered Park Street Station and took on the Triggerman, who hurt a lot. Luckily I had my trusty double-barrel shotgun so I could send their brains to the moon. Inside the vault, dog meat proved to be actually useful by distracting and stunning the triggermen. I eventually got to Dino, and he had this on his health bar. For those of you who don't know, this symbol basically tells you that the enemy you're facing is a significantly higher level than you, like 10 levels above you or whatever. So that means I am already so far behind all of the enemies in levels, and we're only in the first act of the game still. Why do I suddenly have a very bad feeling about this? Anyway, I destroyed the living embodiment of foreshadowing, and then I freed Valentine. He was confused as to how I knew where to find him, and I just told him I have my ways, to be that extra bit of a psychopath. We destroyed the rest of the Triggermen and then got to Skinny Malone. I convinced him to let us go, and then I talked to Valentine. He told me to meet him in Diamond City, so I went there, sold all of my junk to get more ammo, and then I was interviewed by Valentine. He told me to ravage Kellogg's house, so I sweet-talked the mayor's assistant into letting me take the key. I ransacked Kellogg's house, and then I told Dogmeat to lead me to Fort Hagen. I tried to follow Dogmeat for a while, but then I got bored. I ran straight to Fort Hagen, and I waited for Dogmeat to get there. I then headed inside and killed the synths. This was quite difficult actually. Me being such a low level meant that my health bar was so small that even the tiniest of muscle spasms would end me. As a result, the synths down there have a billion health and take a long time and a lot of ammo to take down. Eventually, I got through the synths without too much trouble. I found this weapons workbench and I upgraded some of my weapons to do more damage, but the upgrades at my disposal are severely limited by the fact that I cannot take any of the perks to make me smarter. Before going in to see Kellogg, I found the password for the armory and found a Fat Man, a secret tool that will help us very soon. I went in to see Kellogg, initiated the dialogue with him, and then blew him to high heaven. I stole his brain and his clothes, and then I headed back to Diamond City. I sold a bunch of crap to get more ammo and stim packs, and then I talked to Valentine again. He told me to visit Dr. Amari at the memory den, so I headed to Good Neighbor. I glitched a ghoul into Good Neighbor accidentally, watched a man teleport before my very eyes, and then I went into the memory den. Dr. Amari jacked me into the Matrix, and I ran through the memory segments. Dr. Amari told me to find Virgil in the glowing sea, so I ransacked her office for supplies, and then I dipped. I chugged Radix and sprinted towards Virgil's cave, sneaked past the Deathclaw waiting at the front, and I was face to face with the most convincing Hulk makeup I've ever seen. Virgil told me to kill a Corsair to get the potato chip out of their brain, so I headed to CIT Ruins. I ran straight to Green Tech Genetics because I'm a pro gamer who does pro gamer things, and I took on the gunners inside. The gunners weren't too bad actually. I did the good old run up to them and used a shotgun and VATS trick. Worked like a charm. I am, however, running low on stim packs because I'm unable to attain many caps. I can't get any of the perks that make them more common, better to use, or less expensive. I also don't have any of the perks that give me more caps. My lack of stim packs meant I was primarily relying on food to replenish my health, and then once that ran out, I was living on scraps. The difficulty of this run was starting to come to light. Also, another problem came to my attention during Green Tech. Move! Dog meat! Get out of the fucking way! Dog meat. This little shit kept getting in my way, blocking exits to buildings and preventing me from moving into cover. I honestly don't know how Bethesda still hasn't fixed this issue, but whatever. In a usual playthrough, it's a minor annoyance. In a playthrough where I have limited stim packs and every health point counts, it's a serious detriment. Even so, I still didn't swap Dogmeat out for another companion until pretty much the end of the game. Mostly because I forgot to. Anyway, I ran up to the Corsair room and had Dogmeat stun him while I absolutely laid into him with my laser pistol. I stood there, taking mag after mag into my guts, landing headshot after headshot, but each well-placed shot only blasted away the tiniest slither of health. I eventually got the Corsair after pretty much depleting my ammo, and then I freed the synth girl. I actually let her live this time. Shocking, I know. I went back to Good Neighbor and told Dr. Amari about what happened, and she told me to talk to the railroad to get the chip cracked open. So I sold a bunch more junk to get more ammo, fast traveled to Diamond City to sell more junk, and then quite literally spent 10 minutes staring at a fucking loading screen. Yeah, I had to restart my game. I sold more junk, got more ammo, and I was off to Old North Church. I met with the railroad and let Tinker Tom tinker my Tonka Tom with his Tinker Tom. What? I think I just had a stroke. Anyway, I got the Corsair chip data and gave it to Virgil. He told me to bring some of his crayon drawings to someone with big brain, so it was time to make a choice. I decided it was time to side with the Minutemen because I haven't done a Minutemen ending in years. So I went to Preston Garvey and told him about the teleporter. He told me that I have to help some settlers first, because of course I do. So I now have to do some side quests for the Minutemen and save some settlers. Yay.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I'll save you some time and just tell you that I did a couple of quests that consisted of killing raiders and ghouls and then receiving payment from the quest givers. After that, I talked to Preston, who instantly wanted to promote me to literally the highest rank possible in the Minutemen. That's right, I'm the general now. Huh? Which means I can build the teleporter now, right? No, of course not. Have you even been paying attention? So I was told to help out a couple more settlements, but before I did that, I spent a little bit of time buying and selling to get some scraps to build weapon mods with. I modded the crap out of my trusty shotgun and my laser pistol so they did more damage, and I even purchased a short hunting rifle and then modded it to be a sort of sniper rifle. I gave my gun some fitting names, and I bought enough ammo to make the US military look like a circus. But it still wasn't enough. I did another Minutemen quest and took on some raiders, and it became apparent that I was using more ammo than I was gaining loot. Essentially, to get money in this game, I would have to strip an enemy of any loot and then sell all of that crap later. Since I don't have any of the perks to make them sell better, the money I get from selling the crap is less than that of what I need to buy sufficient ammo and stim packs. This means that I was gradually losing money. I was using more ammo than I was gaining it. And although this wasn't really a problem right now, it sure would be a problem later.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Finally, after helping another settlement, Preston finally felt that we had enough support to beam me into the Institute. So I went to Sturgis and gave him the crayon drawings, and then I realized that I didn't have a biometric scanner.
Can't do it, I can't take this. Oh no!
Which is strange because I always keep one handy because of this specific quest. So I did a quick trip down to the hospital where I faced not one, but two super mutant suiciders. Luckily Dogmeat was able to take the fall on that one. Once I had the biometric scanner from inside the hospital, I raced back to Sanctuary, built the teleporter, and was beamed inside the Institute. I met Father inside the Institute, and I told him I wished to join him. At this point, I didn't really mean it because I was siding with the Minutemen, but we'll get to that. I met all the directors and then I dipped. I didn't know exactly how to progress from here. I spent some time googling how to do the Minutemen ending, and concluded that I have to do a few more side quests. I'll save you some more time and just tell you that I killed some raiders and sold some more loot to get more ammo. And after I finished a couple of those side quests, it was finally time to take the castle. I knew for a fact that there was a Minutemen queen in that place, and I knew I straight up couldn't handle that. So I went back to Drumlin Diner to recover and repair my power armor, and then I was off to the castle. Before I arrived at the castle, I met this man who offered to give me a credit card of caps, and when I told him that's a stupid idea, he called me a no-no word. So I took this as an excuse to blow his fucking head off. Anyway, I arrived and just told the Minutemen to charge straight into the castle and unload everything they've got into the mailworks. This was a critical mistake. No, not him. This was where the game started to rapidly skyrocket in difficulty. The Minutemen Queen was so drastically higher level than me that even 36 well-placed headshots from my fully kitted out laser pistol only knocked off the tiniest fraction of its health. One hit from it was enough to decapitate me even with power armor on. I spent a good long while laying into the Minutemen Queen, spending all of my ammo and grenades on it, only getting it down to half health. Then I ran out of ammo. Oh fuck. I panicked and ran around like a streaker on crack, trying to find some food, drugs, gun, or ammo, or anything at all. I eventually found a missile launcher, which was able to get the Queen's health down to a single digits. Then I wondered what to do. The only option I had left was to either sit and wait for Preston Garvey to finish it off with his laser musket, which is doubtful at best, or gun bash it. I eventually went fuck it, downed some Psycho, Jet, and medics, using up the last of my drugs, and then charged at the Minutemen Queen. I was able to get it low and grab its attention so Preston could actually get up off his fat ass and finish it off. I was quite literally battling that boss for 25 minutes, almost half an hour spent fighting a lobster with a facial deformity. I ditched my power armor at Sanctuary because after that it was completely fucked, like almost completely unrepairable. Well, that was short-lived. I then did a couple more Minutemen side quests to get some more loot to sell, so I could get more ammo and stim packs, because taking the castle left me with literally zero. Okay, recap time. I discovered Skylanes, accidentally killed one of my own men, stopped in at General Atomic Scaleria, killed a bunch of ghouls, killed a bunch of raiders, and proceeded to sell junk at Diamond City for ammo. Now, finally, it was time for the Old Guns quest. This is kind of what I've been aiming towards since the start of the Minutemen questline, because it gives you access to the artillery strike grenades, which are so devastating it's a must-have in a playthrough like this. I ran into some trouble with Sarge because exposing myself to his hateful rays for 0.1 seconds was enough to cripple every limb in my body. Just like my 4th grade teacher. I eventually got him by spamming mines around him and just barely making it out of that fight with all my limbs crippled and my screen going blurry. Every fight in this game now was just a live or die situation. I was barely progressing at this point. Every single fight was like a boss fight. I found the corpse of an old general who gave me some really good armor and a cool hat, and then I took the rest of the crap in the armory. I built the artillery cannons, and I was given a demonstration of their power by the Minutemen bombing a small Arab village. I was given a few smoke grenades to call on the artillery whenever I see fit, and it was time to do more Minutemen shit. I travelled to Grey Garden, who told me to take out super mutants at the water filtration plant. I did that. It took up most of my ammo and stimpaks. It doesn't matter how much ammo or stimpaks I have, they always seem to run out. I went back to them and they congratulated me by telling me to piss off. I then finally returned to the Institute and spoke with Father again. And he asked me if I've now got myself acclimated with my new surroundings. Oh, trust me dude, I've been doing more than that. Now it was time to take on the raiders at Libertalia, so I went on another walking quest. Fuck, my calves have got to be made out of diamonds at this point. I do so much fucking walking in this game. When I finally reached Libertalia, some Brotherhood of Steel goons were there, attacking my Corsa dude. Of course there is. For fuck's sake, why can't this game just function normally? I tried taking out the Brotherhood goons, but their laser schlongs proved too powerful for me. So I sat on a bench and waited for them to go away. I headed through Libertalia, blasting all of them away with my shotgun, and I found this legendary drum shotgun.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Goodbye, CQC. You were good while it lasted. Up on the roof, I used the synth recall code immediately and instantly blasted both of the raiders' heads into smithereens. The synth was taken back to the Institute, and now it's time for another twist of the knife that is this challenge, the Battle of Bunker Hill. I met up with another Corsa and convinced him to give me 3 synth relay grenades, which would be very useful to me 3 missions from now. The battle went about as well as a Salvadorian child on the streets of the United States. Brotherhood Knights littered the place and all carried Gatling lasers and miniguns, making getting into Bunker Hill extremely difficult. Eventually I decided that I wasn't going to waste any more ammo on these chumps, and I chugged some more Psycho and bolted for the hatch door. Inside was even worse. Railroad heavies absorbed my ammo like a sponge and blocked my path to the synths. Eventually I got to them, gave them the recall code, making the battle a win for the Institute. However, there were still some Brotherhood Knights lying around. One of them had a minigun and prevented me from leaving. I took him down with relative ease, but not the next guy. I exited the trapdoor, my game auto-saved, and then I saw a Brotherhood Knight with a Gatling laser staring right down my soul. I was grinded to a pulp, and then I was placed back at that autosave. I was forced to just sit there and watch my character get pummeled over and over again until I finally got the better of that Knight guy by using Psycho, Medics, and a Stealth Boy. Never in my life have I ever seen a more poorly timed save. I left for CIT Ruins to meet with Father, and he told me that he's proud of me for the battle being a raging success, despite the fact that all my limbs are crippled and I probably have some sort of internal bleeding somewhere. Back at the Institute, I attended a director meeting in which Father explained that he is dying, and I am to replace him as director. Then he told me to speak to Dr. Ali in order to go to Mass Fusion. Well, if I somehow wasn't enemies with the Brotherhood before, I certainly am now. I teleported to Mass Fusion and took on the Brotherhood dudes. The scribes weren't too bad, but the Knight fucked me up. I got a good few game over screens, but I eventually got him by leading him to the explosive barrels and sending him to high heaven. I then had to tank a bunch of shots from a bunch of dudes, and then I faced another Brotherhood Knight. This was ever so slightly easier, but was still a chore to take out. Now that we're in the last third of the game, every enemy is super duper high level, meaning any living being takes everything I've got to take down. Down in the agitator room, I downed a full bottle of normal pills and grabbed the agitator. Now it's time to take out the sentry bot at level 1. Great. I used all 3 of those synth relay grenades I got earlier to distract the sentry bot as I laid into it with my pistol. Then I hid in this room that I couldn't get into and continued shooting it and using stimpaks until it did a Hiroshima and detonated a bomb that I had strapped up his ass. Then there were the Assaultrons. This wasn't much easier. It took Med-X, Psycho, and Jet to even get some shots on them. Then unloading 2 whole clips from my drum shotgun was what it took to finally put down these budget Star Wars droids. I sprinted out of mass fusion and then I talked to Father. It was time to make a pivotal decision. It was time for the pinned quest. Basically, there is this guy at Grey Garden who the Institute wants, but he's a Minuteman. So if you do the Minuteman questline, this is where you would side with the Minuteman to become enemies with the Institute. And that's exactly what I did. I ran in there and blasted the heads off all the synths, and then I went to Preston Garvey. He told me that a swarm of Institute goons are going to attack the castle, so I stocked up on a bunch of ammo and I headed there. This was where the playthrough reached its peak in difficulty. Essentially, you have to set up some defenses and then survive against waves and waves of Institute forces until they give up. Which, that wouldn't have been a problem in a normal playthrough, but I am level 1. I lost count of how many times I attempted this mission. Every time I would try to hold my own against the Institute, I would completely run out of stimpaks and ammo halfway through the mission, because all of the synths take more bullets than an actor on set with Alec Baldwin. The synths would kill everyone, I would be stuck in a perpetual loop of dying over and over again, and I'd be forced to reload a save. I even tried to reload a save before the battle so I could go to the combat zone, kill a bunch of raiders, get a new companion, and sell all the junk for even more ammo. I even went so far as to take Dogmeat down to Vault 111, where this whole nightmare started, and said hello to an old friend from a more civilized playthrough. But even with all that ammo and all those stimpaks, armor, drugs, and sheer willpower, it was never enough. I even tried hiding in a corner, popping a stealth boy, and watching the battle unfold with a TFC command, just to see if my companions could finish off the Institute forces. The synths had everyone downed in less than a minute, and every time someone was able to regain their strength, they would be gunned down faster than you can say anti-disestablishmentarianism. I had no stimpaks, no ammo, no health, no food, no drugs, no guns, and no more hope. It was at this point that I wanted to give up the run. It was impossible. I was soft-locked.
But not for long!
Now, I was genuinely thinking of ending the challenge here, because I thought that it couldn't be done. But then I thought, sure, the Minutemen ending can't be done at level 1, but what about the Institute ending? And so it was. I time-traveled back to a few hours of gameplay ago, all the way back to this pivotal conversation at Grey Garden Settlement. And then, I changed my mind. I convinced the Minutemen to stand down, and I saved the synths inside. So I was able to continue the run by siding with the Institute instead of the Minutemen, but I felt a little discomfort knowing that somewhere out there in the cosmos, there is a parallel universe where I gave up, where I failed. Well, it's a good thing we're not in that universe. The show must go on. Anyway, I went back to Father and he told me that it was time for me to address the Commonwealth as the director of the Institute. I sped ran through the speech picking the most generic statements possible, and then I was off to Diamond City to tamper with some radio goods. After breaking into Travis's house and breaking all his stuff, I went back to Father because it's time to put the thing in the other thing and save the world.
Whoa, hey, I didn't draw that. Is that me exploding?
I didn't mention that earlier? When you reunite the piece with the crackle, it might explode?
No, but it might not, right?
Sure.
Father said some words, I attended a director meeting, and they all told me to go to the railroad and pull a Christchurch. I was kind of afraid of the railroad, to be perfectly honest with you. Well, specifically I was afraid of Glory, because she has a high armor and a minigun. And yeah, these guys killed me a good few times, but I was able to take out Glory with a couple of tries, and then the rest fell like flies. Tinker Tom even tried to escape through the backroom tunnel, so I blasted his head open. After that, there was still one more hurdle in my path, the Brotherhood of Steel. They have to be handled. Their habits of doing lines of coke and producing counterfeit Pokemon cards en masse has to be stopped. I was beamed into Boston Airport and I popped a couple stealth boys while I was figuring out my game plan. Basically, I have to destroy these generators so the synths can teleport in. So I managed to power through and break this generator, got some backup from the Institute, and I took on the horde of Brotherhood Knights. Then I was wondering how I was going to be able to break another generator, and then I made an amazing discovery. The artillery is able to reach Boston Airport. These generators are actually in the range of Minutemen artillery, and they still work. And that was a string of luck that I desperately needed. I destroyed the rest of the generators, and now it was time to put a 20 terabyte zip bomb inside Liberty Prime. Defending the synth virus was a pretty difficult and chaotic scene. Paladin Dance, Proctor Ingram, and even Elder Maxon made an appearance to try and stop me. But then I set my synths on them to distract them while I stood at the top and popped a stealth boy. I kept getting shot at by the passing vertibirds, and I ran out of stimpaks, so just when I was super low on health, some scribe got annihilated in front of me, providing me with a free stimpak, so I was surviving on scraps. Eventually, the virus was uploaded in the nick of time, and I was teleported to safety. I watched as the Pridwin copied the Hindenburg, and I sat in total astonishment. I can't believe I actually made it out of that shit show alive. I went back to the Institute to tell Father that the job was done, and the Commonwealth was safe. He told me to always watch over the Institute, and then he faded off to sleep. And that's it. That's a wrap. I just completed Fallout 4 at level 1. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button. Alternatively, if you hated it, go ahead and hit that dislike button. And feel free to go down to the comments and tell me all the other ways I'm a total fuckhead. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's totally free, and you can always unsubscribe later. Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks so much for watching Challenge Chronicles, and I'm out of here.